Tonight, about 2 hours before you feel even slightly tired, your hands and feet are going to start glowing. Not visibly, thermally. The blood vessels just under the skin of your palms and the soles of your feet will widen, and your body will begin dumping heat out through them like a radiator, deliberately, on a schedule you did not set. Your core temperature will fall by roughly 1 degree Celsius. That drop is not a side effect of getting sleepy. That drop is the signal. It's the building telling the night crew that the tenants are leaving and the floor is nearly clear. Because that's what you are, once every 24 hours, for about 8 of them. A building after closing. All day the tenants are in, thinking, moving, deciding, burning fuel, generating waste, filing paperwork into the wrong drawers, and while they're in, nothing structural can happen. The floors can't be washed, the wiring can't be pulled, the archive can't be reorganized. So a crew waits outside, and the moment the last tenant clocks out, they come in with a work order that hasn't changed in 200,000 years, and they run the jobs in a fixed sequence, on a fixed clock, whether you know about it or not. Almost nobody has ever been shown that work order. You've been told to get 8 hours. You've never been told what's scheduled inside them, which crew arrives when, or exactly which jobs get canceled when you end the shift 2 hours early. So let's start the clock. Minute 0, your eyes close and the thalamus, the switchboard that routes every sound, every touch, every temperature signal up to your conscious brain, starts closing its gates. It doesn't shut off, it stops relaying. Bursts of electrical activity called sleep spindles, 11 to 16 cycles per second, sweep across the switchboard and jam the incoming lines. This is why the same noise that would have made you turn your head 10 minutes ago now doesn't reach you at all. The lobby doors are locked, and if you've ever jolted awake with that falling sensation just as you drifted off, that's the motor system releasing control a half second before the rest of the building has cleared and the security system firing one last false alarm. Minute 20. The lights go down and the heavy work begins. Your brain drops into deep sleep and the electrical rhythm changes completely. During the day, your cortex is a trading floor, millions of neurons firing out of step, all talking at once. Now they synchronize. 500,000 cells fall into the same slow rhythm, half a cycle to 4 cycles per second, and the whole cortex rises and falls together like a tide. These are delta waves, and they are the single most restorative thing your brain does. You get the vast majority of them in the first half of the night, not spread evenly, front-loaded, and the moment those slow waves peak, the first crew arrives. Your pituitary releases a pulse of growth hormone, the repair contractor, the signal that tells damaged tissue to rebuild, muscle to synthesize protein, bone to lay down new matrix. Most of your entire daily supply of growth hormone is released in this window tied directly to that first block of deep sleep. Not tied to the clock on the wall, tied to the slow waves, which means if the deep sleep doesn't happen, the pulse doesn't happen. The contractor shows up, finds the tenant still in the building, and leaves. Hour 1. The plumbing. While the slow waves roll, something remarkable happens to the space between your brain cells. In mice, researchers measured the gaps between cells widening by around 60% during sleep, and cerebrospinal fluid, the clear fluid your brain floats in, pushing through those widened channels and flushing metabolic waste out toward the bloodstream, including beta amyloid, the protein that accumulates in Alzheimer's disease. In 2019, human imaging showed something that fits beautifully. Large, slow pulses of cerebrospinal fluid washing into the sleeping brain roughly every 20 seconds, locked in rhythm with those same delta waves. Blood volume dips, fluid floods in, waste goes out. Now, just to be precise about this, because it matters, this is the part of the night with the loudest headlines and the least settled science. The 60% figure is from animals. Some researchers have since run experiments in mice that found the opposite pattern, and the argument is genuinely live. What is not in dispute is that the fluid moves, that it moves in time with slow-wave sleep, and that the movement is far stronger asleep than awake. Treat the cleaning crew as real. Treat the exact size of the mop as unsettled. Hour 1.5, the crew changes. Your brain climbs back out of deep sleep and does something strange. Electrically, it looks awake, fast, active, hot, in some regions burning more energy than it does while you're reading this. Your eyes start moving under the lids, and your brainstem sends a signal down your spinal cord that chemically paralyzes almost every muscle in your body. Your arms, your legs, your torso, all of it, switched off at the source. 2 exceptions: the muscles that move your eyes and your diaphragm, so you keep breathing. Why would evolution build a state that runs the motor system's rehearsal and then cuts the cables? Because whatever your brain is doing in there, it is realistic enough that acting it out would be dangerous. A body that stands up and runs during a dream is a body that walks off a ledge. So the simulation gets to play at full intensity and the outputs get disconnected at the spine. The stage is live. The doors to the street are bolted. This is REM sleep, and this first one lasts maybe 5 or 10 minutes. It's a short visit. Remember that because the length is the whole story later. Hour 2, Hour 3, the archive. This is my favorite job on the work order. During the day, everything you learn gets written to a small, fast, temporary structure called the hippocampus, the loading dock. It's quick to write to, and it has almost no room. Overnight, during deep sleep, the hippocampus replays the day's recordings in bursts, compressed to something like 10 or 20 times real speed, and each burst is timed to arrive at the cortex exactly when a slow wave has left it receptive. Loading dock to permanent storage, boxes off the truck into the shelves, labeled and cross-referenced against everything already up there. That last part is why sleep doesn't just preserve what you learned, it reorganizes it. New information gets filed next to old information, and connections you never consciously made are sitting there in the morning. The phrase, sleep on it, is not a metaphor. It's a description of a filing operation. If this is the first time anyone has actually walked you through the mechanism instead of just telling you to go to bed earlier, subscribe. This is the entire channel, the invisible schedules running underneath ordinary life. Hour 4, the immune shift. While you're paralyzed and dreaming, your immune system is doing work it cannot do properly while you're upright. Researchers found that certain T cells, the ones that hunt down infected cells, stick to their targets more effectively during sleep because the stress signals that normally interfere with that grip fall away at night. In vaccine studies, people who slept normally after an injection produced substantially stronger antibody responses than people whose sleep was cut short. The night crew isn't only cleaning and rebuilding, it's also training security. Around this point, you hit your core temperature minimum roughly 2 hours before you'd naturally wake. Coldest you get all day. Cortisol, which bottomed out near midnight, has quietly begun to climb. Hour 5. The ratio flips. Here's what almost nobody knows about their own night. The 8 hours are not 8 identical hours. Early cycles are dominated by deep sleep with brief flashes of REM. Late cycles invert it completely. Deep sleep shrinks to almost nothing, and REM stretches out until by the final cycle, you can be dreaming for 30-40 minutes at a stretch. Same building, completely different shift, which brings us to the 2 hours I promised you. Hour 6 through 8 is REM territory, and REM is the strangest state your brain enters. Noradrenaline, the alertness and stress chemical, drops to essentially zero. It is the only time in the entire 24 hours that your brain is completely free of it. Meanwhile, the amygdala, your emotional processing center, is highly active, and your dreams are replaying emotionally charged material from your life in a brain with the stress chemistry switched off. One leading hypothesis is that this is how experience gets separated from its emotional charge. You keep the memory, you lose the sting. The evidence is suggestive rather than settled, and researchers still argue about it, but it fits something you already know from your own body. After a bad night, small things feel enormous. That is not weakness. That's an unfinished job on the work order. And now the objection, because the skeptic is already thinking, I do fine on 6 hours. Here's why that feels true and is physiologically backwards. Cutting from 8 to 6 removes a quarter of your sleep, but it removes it from the end, where REM lives. You don't lose a quarter of your REM, you lose something closer to half of it. The deep sleep jobs at the front of the night still run. The emotional and integrative jobs at the back get canceled. And in a landmark study, people restricted to 6 hours a night for 2 weeks showed attention failures equivalent to going 2 full nights without sleep at all, while rating their own sleepiness as barely elevated. The impairment kept accumulating. The feeling of impairment plateaued. You don't feel the debt because the instrument measuring it is the thing that's broken. Is the myth ever true? For a very small number of people, yes. There are rare genetic variants that produce genuine short sleepers who function on 6 hours indefinitely. They exist. They are also vanishingly rare, and virtually everyone who believes they have it doesn't. So what do you actually do with this? Anchor your wake time, not your bedtime. The crew's schedule is set by light and by consistency, and your wake time is the strongest lever you have. Get outside within an hour of waking. Even an overcast morning delivers 10,000 lux, while a bright indoor room gives you a few hundred. That single exposure sets tonight's melatonin release. Let your bedroom run cool, around 18 degrees Celsius, because you cannot fall asleep until your core temperature drops, and a warm room fights the mechanism directly. Caffeine has a half-life of about 5 hours, which means a 3 o'clock coffee still has a quarter of its dose in you at midnight, and alcohol, this one is worth knowing, reliably suppresses REM in the first half of the night and fragments the second half. It sedates you. It does not put you to sleep. Now the honest part. If you shift your schedule, week 1 will feel worse, not better. You'll lie in bed awake at a new bedtime because your internal clock hasn't moved yet. Clocks shift slowly, and mostly in response to morning light, not to willpower at night. Don't chase it with an earlier bedtime. Hold the wake time, get the morning light, and let the sleepiness arrive on its own. By week 3, it usually does, and this is a mechanism explainer for healthy adults, not medical advice. If you snore heavily, wake gasping, or feel wrecked after 8 full hours, that's a conversation with a doctor. Sleep apnea doesn't respond to sleep hygiene. If you have chronic insomnia, please don't just lie in bed longer. The effective treatment is structured and worth getting properly. If you're pregnant, working nights, managing a mental health condition, on medication that affects sleep, or living with chronic pain, your timeline is genuinely different from the one I just described. None of this is a moral test. Nobody is failing at sleep. Zoom out with me for a second. Your body isn't broken. It's running a program written for a world with no electric light, no screens, no heated bedrooms, no midnight emails. Every one of those things does the same thing to the same mechanism. It tells the building that the tenants are still working, so the crew waits outside a little longer. The work order doesn't get shorter. The shift does. The machinery is already installed, fully built, fully staffed, waiting. The only thing missing was ever being told when it turns on. Tell me in the comments where you are on this timeline right now as you're watching, and whether you've ever felt that morning after a short night where everything small felt enormous. That's hour 6, unfinished. Tonight, when your feet get warm under the blanket, you'll know what that is. The doors are unlocking. The crew is already in the stairwell. Let them work.